email. I haven't gotten any messages from anyone.
Me neither.
Here, if you called roll and I missed it.
Oh, you didn't. There's Brent and Andrew.
I'm here, Claudia.
Claudia's here. I see Rhea or Karina. We just need one more person to make a quorum.
Okay.
To Claudia.
Is Claudia calling user 4?
I'm not sure. I thought that
No.
maybe she was 29291.
Okay.
Claudia,
am,
she
yes.
joins as that number at the top, and then she's also the call-in user, but I'll change the name.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Miranda. Brent, are you guys getting enough snow up there yet in Eldora?
Well, we're in a lot better shape than we were 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah. Are any of the trees open yet?
yeah, we actually have opened Westridge and Salto and
Sweet.
Bryan's
Wow.
Glade.
Nice.
Valley Jug Glade
Awesome.
are open. So yeah,
Great.
there's some tree skiing finally.
Good. Yeah, that's always fun. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, big turnaround. I mean, we got a couple feet of snow.
Hey, it's amazing what you guys were getting compared to Netherlands.
Yeah. We've been socked up in there and we're, but we've got a fair amount of wind too.
Right.
But it's been pretty good the last week.
Great. All right. It looks like maybe we have Andrew, me, Barb, Claudia, and Brent. So I think we do have a quorum. We have 5 of us. But it's not going to be a packed meeting, but I think we could probably start. What do you think, Hope?
Is that all we need for a quorum, right? It's 5?
I think
Makes
it's
sense to
5.
me. Yeah, I think you can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, it's just consent agenda in the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Hope, could you do a call to order? Or a roll call? I'll call the meeting to order now, then we'll do the roll call.
And Hope, I had muted you. You could hear your typing, so I had muted you. So you'll need to unmute yourself.
Got it. Thanks. So let's call the meeting to order. And Hope, could you do a roll call?
I think you're muted.
Oh, yeah. Hope, it looks like you're muted.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not muting myself. It's getting muted
Now
on
we,
me.
now we can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know if I'm muted. Chair Steve Caro,
Here.
Barb Hart,
Here?
Vice Chair Brent Trigaskis,
Here.
Andrew DeWart,
Here.
and Claudia Schaffler.
Here.
Great. And if I could maybe not be muted, just because I'm not seeing a button where I can unmute myself on this side.
So Hope, you can hear your typing takes over the sound if you don't mute.
Okay, I will type quietly or I'll write, but there's no way for me to unmute, so let me see. I got unmute
I see.
temporarily by holding
Across.
space bar. Okay. All right, thanks.
Great. So let's see, the first thing we do is if we have any non-agenda items for public comment, please speak up. Okay, it sounds like we don't have any public comment for non-agenda items. Moving along, we've got the consent agenda. Do any of the board members have questions or discussion on this? Okay, so
I move to approve the consent agenda.
great. Second that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. Now we have the informational items. The chair report, I don't have anything for the chair report. Ron Mitchell is not here that I see. Don't see him here.
Don't see Ron, but if you're ready to hear about Big Springs, I can.
Oh, we're not
No,
there yet.
Andrew.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
we're gonna-
Sorry. All right.
No problem. We were just looking for the treasurer report. But we'll move on to the executive director report from Hope.
Okay, I think I'm going to try to share the screen that I have. Oh, that didn't seem to work for me. Hold on for 1 second. No, are you seeing anything? Are you seeing my document?
No.
Just your initials.
Okay. Well, then I'll just open it. I made a couple changes or an update in the agenda in my document because last night I applied for the remaining DOLA funds. And that amount that I applied for reimbursement for is $60,732.80. That includes a $59,999.93 in reimbursable grant funds that were distributed to 36 businesses in the area on December 10th. And it also includes $732.93 that I applied towards grant administration fees. I hope you all get a chance to take a look into the executive report because I've included the financial TIF distribution forms and the mill distribution forms. It's a great way that if you don't feel like getting into any convoluted spreadsheet, for you to take a look at what the DDA is gaining in TIF. I also started this past month working on wrapping up the 2020 budget, and I really want to thank Rita for chatting with me through this. It's been a great experience working with her. I still have a few things to wrap up. Tanner just sent earlier this evening, the year-end financials that in just glancing at them, I have a couple questions for him that I'd like to go through before I hand them out, but you can feel confident that everything will be up to speed. So this last few weeks, I applied for 1099-G forms. Those are forms that the DDA needs to use, remember this in the future, for any kind of grants that they give out. There's a 1099 NEC form and a 1099 MISC form that always needs to go to our attorney, Paul Bendetti, and any kind of subcontractors that we're working with. So I've become really close to the budget and the DDA money. I've got a really great, I guess, overview of it, and I'm very excited to get it all worked out together. Part of working on the budget is, if you look in the executive director report, is the resolution spreadsheet 2005 to present. And I'm really working on building how much money was actually borrowed, any kind of fees, what money is left over, and in some cases, starting to move the money that's left over back into the TIF funds where they belong. There was a question, or I guess there is possibly still a question on the table. I moved the $97,000 that we received I moved that back into the TIF funds. So if that's an issue, maybe we can ask Paul Bendetti about it. Rita was kind of curious about it when we were talking. So that's worth looking into, I guess, in the future. So again, I gave just an overview of some of the highlights of what I did in the last few weeks for the DDA. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and let me know. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Hope. Appreciate that. And now we have the town staff report. Would that be Karen or Miranda?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get it started and then pass it on to Miranda.
Thank you.
Sure. So as you guys know, I do these reports a week in advance, and always, as soon as we send it off to Hope, something big changes. So the dial, the whole county's been moved into yellow now. I'm sure you guys are following that.
That's great.
Yeah, Miranda did contact all the businesses and worked with them all directly, so they all knew, what this meant to them. Basically, there are less restrictions, there's higher capacity, and so on and so forth. The numbers too that I showed are also a week old. The numbers, though, continue to trend in a very positive way. Our positivity rate is still at 3.3%, which is great. The goal has been to get it down below 5%, and now we're very safely below that. Part of the new Dial 2.0 is that instead of tracking 2 weeks worth of data, we're now just tracking 7 days worth of data. And the reason for that is that it gives a little bit more flexibility to the counties to have less of a time span where they might be able to qualify to go into a less restrictive level. There are some caveats though. The hope is that counties will actually continue to conduct robust amounts of testing, and your positivity rate actually has to be lower than it has been in the past. And again, the idea is that as more people get vaccinated, that we will see that positivity rate continue to drop. So that's, there's a couple changes. I did make links so that if you're interested in going more in depth, you can certainly do that. The vaccination rate in Boulder County is actually really high compared to the rest of the state. It's really frustrating to some people. There are people over 70 who have been on the list for quite some time, and frustrated, not understanding why they're not getting vaccinated. But Boulder County has over 60% of the folks over 70 already vaccinated, which is one of the best track records in the state. So Boulder County Public Health is really committed to working with the municipalities and trying to assist people so that they can get their vaccinations. We are working actively with Boulder County Public Health and trying to get a vaccination clinic up here. It's really not as easy as it may sound because of the way that the current vaccines are transported, the way they're stored, and then the number of vaccines that we are getting in the state now. From what I just heard from the governor today in his press conference is that we should get an influx of more vaccines soon. I think I told you last month that Johnson & Johnson was pretty close to getting their vaccine approved. The cool thing about their vaccine is it only requires one shot, and it can just be refrigerated instead of deep frozen, so it's much easier to transport. What I learned today is that they will have their final kind of approval board on February 26th, I believe. It's looking very, very good that it will pass muster and it will be sent out. They have something like 100 million doses ready to send out. And my understanding is that this could mean that we will get in our state something along the lines of 100,000 a week compared to what we've been getting in the past. So, you know, the news is good. Things continue to trend in a better way. We are still, you know, telling everyone it's very important to continue to social distance, wear your mask, you know, stay in as much as you can, unless, of course, you recreate safely outdoors like at Eldora. But other than that, you know, really making sure people are still being safe because we aren't out of the woods yet. And I think I read recently that the hope was that once maybe, I don't know, I don't want to give you the wrong number, but there is a threshold we have to reach of vaccinations before we can say, you know, herd immunity. And we're not anywhere near there. It's probably going to be more like in the summer before we reach that. So even though the news is good, just want to make it clear that we still have a ways to go. And Miranda, do you want to talk about the 5-star program?
Yeah, so the 5-star program has officially launched. So businesses are able to submit their application and go through the process of making sure their facilities are in line with the 5-star standards. As Karen indicated, you know, it'll be important that we have that vaccine rate in order for Boulder County restaurants or businesses to be eligible for 5-star, but it's worth submitting an application now and getting the facility up to standard so that when we can start to do inspections, team members can go out. I did complete my inspection certification today, so I will be able to go and do the inspections for all of Nederland businesses. That's what I indicated, so we can get those done quickly rather than waiting for someone to come to us. So I have all the information in here. We're also still looking for volunteers. So if anyone on this call or anyone in the community is interested in being a 5-star reviewer, it's an option, and the training is about 2 hours to go and get that done. So I do encourage everyone to take a look at the 5-star program. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, before we go to questions, I just have a couple more things, but you finish first.
Well, I have a couple more things too. I just wanted to quickly add that we were able to distribute PPE to about 30 businesses of this last round we received. So that was great. I did apply for grant funding to hopefully get more PPE for businesses. So we can continue to keep them up to date on that. But I'm glad that we were able to at least distribute. We had hand sanitizers, alcohol wipes, gloves, and masks, and we've officially distributed all of it.
Okay. And then I just wanted to let everyone know that we did wrap up the 2021 budget process, and I just want to give big kudos to Rita Six. She also recently became officially our town treasurer. She took the oath of office at our last Board of Trustees meeting, so congratulations, Rita. The budget book is now posted both with the Department of Revenue, which is of course required by the statute, and then also on our website. And of course, the DDA budget is included in that as well. If any of you want to look at that, we do have the link in our report. And then the final thing I just want to mention is that both Claudia and I are members of the Mountain Community Health Task Force. This is a really exciting group of people trying to work on bringing clinical family health up to the mountain areas to provide a medical clinic. Just stay tuned for information. I really want to give big kudos to Claudia. I don't know if all of you know what an amazing person you have on your board. She has been an advocate for bringing something like Clinic of Family Health up to the mountain area for years, and we're gaining some traction. We got a great team, and just stay tuned for updates.
That's great.
Great. Karen. Was that the whole report?
Yep, that's it. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions.
So Miranda, I heard you say, so you've taken the course to be an inspector for Nederland. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that. That's
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and thanks for that report too. It's great to hear the COVID numbers going down, and I want to second that thought that we all need to hang tight now more than ever and just stick it out and be safe for many more months to come. It's a lot easier to get lax when we have a vaccine coming and see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think it's so important for us in Netherlands, to continue our great work of social distancing and being safe and careful.
Oh, and that reminds me, the one other thing I wanted to say is that we are still at only 21 confirmed cases since last March, and we have the lowest incident rate in the county.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Everyone's doing great.
Totally. Keep up the good work, everybody. Let's see. Now we're going to move on to the committee reports. And Andrew, do you have any update for the parking committee?
Yeah, just kind of a update as what's gone on since the last meeting. And I did hear from Ron that he's not going to be able to make it. So basically, I've been kind of the liaisoning and facilitating the dialogue between Chris Pelletier and JVA with Stephen Tebow and his associates, because we had, when JVA completed their initial review based on Lee's survey, they noticed a discrepancy, which we determined was just because of different datum used by surveyors as datum changed with a FEMA update. That was an easy fix, and we sent an email to Stephen Tebow, kind of wanting to just informally reaffirm his partnership with the town and the phasing of the project, and getting a commitment that he's willing to go ahead and do the retaining wall before the sidewalk work is done. And so we've basically we've gotten GA some CAD files that came from those proposed parking plans, so that JVA can easily overlay those onto their design. All of this was really done in an effort to minimize additional costs that either JVA would incur or Lee Stadell would incur. So just a lot of electronic forensic work and digging out old CAD files and getting them to the right people and getting everyone on the same page. And I think we're there. And currently Nathan has got everything that he needs, Nathan of JVA, to work on his, the opinion of probable costs and proposal for Big Springs parking. So I feel like we're moving in the right direction. Some either miscommunications or lack of information has been dealt with, and now we've also the joint driveway agreement is something that he intends to pursue. And Steve, I don't know if you've been reached out to by his folks, but that's something that is in the works to my knowledge, and he's committed to starting the retaining wall and getting that done before the sidewalk work is done. So things are all moving along as we want them to, and I think the right people have the right information now. So really, aside from that, that's the update on Big Springs parking.
Can I ask you
Does
a
anyone
quick
have any-
question, Andrew?
Yep.
This is Karen.
Yep.
Can you just remind me? I apologize, I forget. Is the retaining wall on Tebow's property?
Yes, but
Okay.
in order to do that, he would be building right up next to the sidewalk, and really the retaining wall, because of the structural footer, that needs to happen before a sidewalk comes right up. Yeah, so.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I was just trying to visualize it in my head. Thank you.
Yep.
And Andrew, was that confirmed that it's entirely on his land, like it's not within the right of way?
Correct. Yeah. To my knowledge, the retaining wall is on his property, and we've a lot of this back and forth of CAD files and surveys and datum has been to make sure that really his plan and the data that he's using totally dovetails with Public Works and Chris's plan, so that we don't end up with a height difference on his stairs coming down, and so we're trying to set him up for success with the right data that we're using, and also make sure that part of this, as Chris brought up, is I'm going to try and make this. We've got the shared driveway where there's drainage, and so there was, I think the last piece of information we're waiting for was just a confirmation from Tebow's team on the amount of impermeable area that they're actually proposing for the Black Forest parking area, because Chris Pelletier had indicated, and I agree, that the shared driveway, it would be good to have some concrete there and some kind of diversion, not, I call them speed bumps, but chevrons that divert water away from right out onto Big Springs. So we're really several moving parts there, but they're all dovetailing together. And JVA's got the right information, and Lee's been super helpful in talking to some of the original Flatiron surveyors, and not to kind of get lost in the weeds here, but definitely a lot of elevation details, and they're all working together so far. So that's been good news.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrew. I think
you.
we're all excited for that project to keep moving forward.
Yep.
Were there any other questions for Andrew on that? Okay. Well, I'd like to move on to the Performance Space Committee, and we left this here after the electrical shed was completed, just as a placeholder and to keep it in our top of mind. So I'm not sure if there's any updates or any plans with that, but I thought either Chris or Andrew, maybe you could just chime in on if there are any plans going for as far as the performance space, as opposed to just the electrical shed.
I could speak to it briefly.
Thanks.
The ProSab has submitted a GOCO grant to update trails around the performance space, and so there's sort of a plan to start working on development, and then we're also in communication with the City of Boulder about our agreement to construct a restroom over there. It's just talk right now, but it's productive talk. So that's really where it's at. There's no plan to grade it at this point, but hopefully, if we get GOCO funds, it'll help spur more effort in that area of town.
Great. Well, I like having it on our agenda, just even as a reminder, because we'd love to be, integral part of that as it moves forward. Good. The next item up is the Beautification Committee, And Claudia, I don't know if you have any updates for us on that?
I actually do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So after going around a lot with Rhea, she's been a big help, and we've been talking to Mike, who worked for us last summer. We're gonna try to do something a little bit different. My goal is still the same, to figure out how to do more perennials instead of annuals, and how to work on water reduction. So, but we're not going to take that on fully this year. We did figure out that we could help with the watering by utilizing the system that was put in there before. That I'm not sure it was the plants were planted correctly to be able to utilize that. So it's the and Hope can probably identify it. I forget what it's called, but it's a reservoir system in the pots that will help us with the amount of water that we have to use and how frequently we have to do it. So my suggestion is, and I've cleared this through Mike and Rhea, we want to hire Mike to basically staff the program through the summer. He's going to plant the plants that we will purchase from Hannah again, and she's happy to sell them to us. She's our previous vendor, and then Mike will plant them. He's going to do a little less per pot this year because he felt like they were overstuffed. He's going to maintain and water the plants in the pots and boxes, and he will water in the designated in-ground gardens. Otherwise, we're not going to try to do any other maintenance this year. We are probably going to ask for some volunteer help to get the plants put in, because it's kind of a concentrated period of time where you need to do it and you can't spread it out. So, and he has some people, and then I have some suggestions too of volunteers that might be able to help with planting. We're gonna, Ray and I are gonna research where we could plant more perennials, and there are some people in the community that are either landscape architects or they're familiar with it. So I'm gonna follow up on that. We're not gonna try to do too much of that probably this year, but we're gonna try to have a better plan for next year. We are going to, of course, summer's a good time to explore that, and then see if we can't maybe even develop some more gardens in different areas. Another goal I have, and I talked to Ray about this, is I would love to figure out how to utilize public art for long-term beautification, and not just murals, which I think are amazing, and I hope we continue to work on that. But I was thinking if we could do some public art in the roundabout, even if we were to create a small wall around the roundabout where it would be safe from semis driving over the edge of it. It'd be really fun to put something like a mosaic wall in there, something that would have color in the roundabout all year round, regardless of what we have planted in there. We're going to still explore putting perennials in there, but consider its location and stuff, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to. But we're going to look into it. The other thing we could do in the traffic circle, of course, is just put a beautiful planter in there, just something like that to make it look really interesting, even in the snow in the winter. I think that's about it. Again, I'm pushing public art to try to enhance what we do in the summer. We're not going to get away from annuals altogether by any stretch, but if we can reduce that, I think we'd end up, doing a better service up here. So that's what we're moving forward. I've talked to Mike extensively. He's happy to and willing to do this. We may have to look at hiring somebody just to help with some of the, like I said, if we can't get volunteers, we may need to help with some of the maintenance, but I don't think so. He seems to think he can manage it okay. So it's kind of a trial thing for this summer, and we'll see how it goes and then modify it as we need to.
So we'll need to put an advertisement out for that job. We'll have to go through that hiring process. We have to legally
previous employees.
I did explain to Claudia that our procurement policy does have some exceptions. For instance, if you're working with the same vendor that you've been working with, for a year or two, they know what's going on. There are ways that you don't have to put out another RFP. So anyways, I have explained, I won't take up a lot of time in your meeting, but I would be happy to discuss with your financial people when you get paid.
Okay, 'cause I would personally like to request that some kind of job advertisement goes out, because while I really appreciate all the hard work that both Claudia and Ray are putting into this, I really need to emphasize that last summer, Mike did not have the time, because he was a full-time employee at Wild Bear that runs summer camps from like 7:30 in the morning and until 4:30 at night, and had herself frustrated, feeling that the plants in the pot were not taken care of properly. And the DDA itself had over $10,000 that was allocated towards someone in that position that went unspent because the hours were not put into it. And I myself had to water, and I myself had to lug things around and get soil, and it was just not an easy role. So I really beg you to really consider the fact that he's a full-time employee somewhere else, and it really didn't work last year. And I'm really sorry to say it. I know that's very frustrating to you, Claudia, but
No, that's okay. I appreciate your input. And a lot of this has been addressed, Hope, and we've spent a whole lot of time, both Ray and I, with Mike. So we do have a caveat that we may need to hire somebody to help out above and beyond that, what he can do, but that's why we're going to try it this year. So, no, I appreciate that, but we've explored all that, and we're ready to move forward. And Hannah's frustration, I think, was also shared by Mike with her because, again, he felt like the pots were overpacked. So Hannah is just a vendor this year. She's not planting anything. So I think she, can comfortably step out of the loop on this. But again, I thank you. I understand, but we're ready to move forward.
All right. Well, thanks, you guys. That sounds like a good plan. I think if there is, Claudia and Rhea, if there is any idea that might be wanting to hire some backup, it would be great if you could bring it to our next meeting, put it on the agenda so that we could act on it as we need, just because the summer's going to come sooner than we expect.
I know. Hopefully it's coming sooner
Yeah,
than
we
we
hope.
expect.
Except Brent might like winter a little more.
True.
Well, thanks for that update, and it's exciting to hear some changes afoot in the beautification.
I'm
Next
really
up we have-
excited to see how this works.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, we have the communication committee with Barbara. I don't know if you have any updates for us.
Yeah, I met with Hope and Spafford yesterday, and we talked about launching the new website and the need to do that before putting any more time and effort into updating the old website. So the plan is to get that done soon. I'll be meeting with Spafford once a week until we get it launched, and just getting kind of some loose ends tied up. And then we were going to go ahead and do that, and then Hope and Spafford will be filling in the blanks there, and I'll continue working on the business directory with them to make sure that all of our local businesses are recognized. And that's kind of where we're at.
That sounds great. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Barbara? All righty. Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the wayfinding committee. And Claudia, I think you'd be best to update since you've been the one working than I did since the last meeting.
Okay, sure. We have had a couple of conversations with John at Merge. We are scheduled. I did send out requests, and I called and I followed up, and Miranda helped me send out to another list that she had that might have been more accurate, to the businesses, asking them if they wanted to participate. The ones that bounced back to me, I actually called them. We have had a limited number of interests so far, which I think everybody's pretty busy and just trying to struggle through the winter. But I think the more we get going, the more responses we'll have. I have posted it on Facebook a couple of times. So next week we have I think, 5 meetings scheduled Wednesday and Thursday. One is with town folks, and including Chris, of course, Karen, Miranda, Nikki, and I know Rick is going to participate on that one from the fire department. I discussed it with him. And so we'll have a meeting with them. I have a meeting with only 2 of the advisory boards responded, and obviously ProSab wants to be very involved, which is great, and SAB wants to be involved, which is also great. So we will be meeting with them, and I know Eric is going to participate in that meeting because he's the ProSab advisor, and I think I did invite Alan, who is the SAB advisor. So I'm hoping we get some good involvement from them. And then I split up the businesses that responded into 2 groups, and we'll be doing those meetings, I think, on Thursday. They're all virtual, of course. And they're kind of divided up, just one side of town versus the other. If anybody knows of a business that would like to participate, please let me know. I would be happy to include them. And then we have a public meeting that I've posted. Thank goodness for Miranda to help me get all these meetings invites set up. And that will be Wednesday evening. I think we've set it at 6 p.m. I also sent an email to the BOT, and I always forget about sunshine laws, so I apologize, but telling them what we were doing and asking them basically where did they want to participate. So Miranda's helping me make sure that I don't violate any sunshine laws by publicizing these. And I'm fine if we want to make them public. We just have to limit the number of people on each of these meetings, with the exception, of course, of the public one. So we're ready to move forward. We're hoping to get some really good ideas from this. I put in a lot of time on this, and I think that's all I've done is set up meetings. But we're anxious to see what comes out of this, and we're ready to move forward as soon as we have a good idea. Also, I did ask Steve and John what they thought about if potentially coming up with an idea to take down the big sign at the shopping center, which is pretty useless, and did we have any alternatives for that? Because I'm just afraid that's going to interfere with what we're trying to do. But that being said, that's not high on the priority list. The other thing, I think I mentioned this to Steve, but there is a guy in town that I'm interested in talking to. He develops apps, and he does all kinds of higher level internet type stuff like that. So I was hoping to talk to him at some point and get some ideas of any suggestions he might have if we put up kiosks and have interactive maps, or if we have an app that people could actually go to. So that's kind of in the future too, but we're moving forward, and I'm getting really excited about it.
Great. Thanks, Claudia, on that. Does anyone have questions for Claudia or me about what stage we're at? All righty. And I missed that committee, Claudia, in case you have anything on that.
I don't. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right, next up we have the Public Art Committee. And Ray, I saw you joined the meeting a little while ago, so I don't know if you have any update on the public art for us. And you're muted right now. Ray, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my internet's terrible. The update is that we're hoping to have the final art plan completed here in the next week or two, hoping to bring it to the DDA board next meeting, and then to the BOT the following week. And then if, depending on the BOT's comments, maybe bring it back to the board, the DDA board for final approval.
Great, that sounds wonderful. So we'll look forward to seeing that on the next meeting agenda.
Okay.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Rhea? Alrighty. Moving along, we have the Envision 2030, and Ron is on that one, but he's not on the meeting. I don't know, perhaps Karen or Miranda, if either of you have any updates on what's happening with the Envision 2030 group?
Miranda, do you want to give an update of where the committee's at?
Yeah, so the committee has met twice now. Our first meeting was just kind of an introduction. At the first meeting, every member of the committee was assigned to read the comp plan, Vision 2020 action plan, as well as the 61 SWOT analysis responses we received from both community members, boards and commissions, like the one we did with the DDA, and external agencies. So it was almost like 250 pages worth of reading. So I applaud them for diving into that. At last night's meeting, we really spent the time discussing some of the themes that have emerged, and the plan is to then break into subcommittees. So the next step for Envision 2030 is the committee members are voting on which subcommittee they want to be in, but to know those subcommittees are arts, culture, and education, community engagement, health, human and social services, housing, municipal government and economic development, which is probably where we'll tie in a lot of what's going on with the DDA, parks, recreation, open space, and sustainability and environment. So once we break into those subcommittees, like I said, I do anticipate that the committee members will likely want to reach out to the DDA to get up to speed on some of the projects. But I'll keep you all updated on that along with Ron as we move forward in the process. But really, we're moving into kind of visioning statements and starting to identify some of the goals for the next 10 years.
Great. Thanks for that update. We look forward to hearing more about it as it develops. Next up, I don't know if Chris, if this would be something you'd update us on, just with the 3 current town projects with the TIF, some TIF involvement.
Yes.
Great.
And I'll be quick about it. I think what I'll do is I'll pull up the tip map because there has been a couple changes. So hold on, let me pull it up. And I think the tip map will just help with explaining the safer street. And we'll just provide a good segue into talking about TIP. I don't have much to talk about for Safer Main Streets because really I'm just in the intergovernmental agreement phase and paperwork phase with CDOT. So I have had a kickoff meeting with the engineers. However, really just like high level and just talk about ideas more than anything. So, okay. Anyway, the Safer Main Streets project is about constructing the sidewalk here where the little cursor is that I'm moving east-west. There's a sidewalk, dirt sidewalk by the library. So the project will include putting a hard surface there, and we're looking at pavers. A crosswalk here at the library that already exists, but we'd like to improve it. We would like to add a section of sidewalk here to connect with TIP, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Then down over here by the visitor center, adding a crosswalk here. And we're not exactly sure how to configure it, but we're in discussion about a definitive crossing there with a good visual crosswalk that is not just stripes. So that's our goal there. And so as soon as we start moving that project along, I'll bring it to you guys and we'll talk about it more and I'll get ideas from you. But at this point, nothing really to talk about. Okay, so on to the TIP project. There's been two changes really. The first significant change is town staff has communicated with the property owner of Ned's, and he that person has decided to reclaim their property, and they don't want the town sidewalk on their property any longer. And so, so with that in mind, we're moving the sidewalk out into the right of way. I've shown you this plan before in previous presentations. It's not ideal because it does take away parking, but it does respect boundaries of each other's property lines. So it is what it is. That's what you see here in front of you. Over here by RTD, we have had discussions with RTD to refine how they would like to see the entrance into their parking area. And so that's what you see here. RTD has also asked that we that we don't include the sidewalk on Jackson Street. It's on the west side of Jackson Street here, because they don't see, there really isn't a crosswalk in their entrance. What I'm depicting here, which is different than past presentations, is that we have moved the sidewalk to the east side of Jackson Street and put a crosswalk in the middle. It's not typical. It is more intuitive to cross at a stop sign at an intersection. But the reason why we have suggested this change is that with safer main streets, we do have an opportunity to have one nice clean sidewalk all the way down to connect with Tip and have better continuity. So there's that. Now I'm going to move to the other figure. Those are the two changes, really. So in this picture, the same configuration I've showed you all along, but it does, if you think about the bigger picture with safer streets, having that connectivity from you know, across the highway to RTD is a little bit more difficult to achieve. And over here, in past presentations, there's a little indent here in Town Hall. Now, this is something that's new to Karen. She hasn't seen this yet, and town staff has to talk about this a little bit. But what we're showing here is the sidewalk off of Town Hall property as well, and just configured in a nice straight line along the property line. And we believe that there is room here for a loading zone adjacent to the curb on the sidewalk. So those are the changes. I just want to let you know that I am bringing these two plans to the BOT on their next meeting next Tuesday to ask them to allow staff to submit this preliminary plan for the first review of CDOT, which is essentially a 30% design. Fundamentally, the plan is not changing much. And so what we're planning is submitting both this configuration here at RTD and this configuration for their review, so we can still talk about this more, and it's not set in stone. And then again, over here, I would like better clarity on this, but again, this little change in the plan is not a deal breaker for this first cursory review from CDOT. Essentially, CDOT will look at these plans and look for any glaring problems with them and ask town to change them at this stage. And so again, there's this sort of bump in at Town Hall, and then, you know, and then have a loading zone, or it's truly straightening out the sidewalk, having a loading zone, temporary loading zone adjacent to the sidewalk. And then just like Ned's is reclaiming their property, Town Hall could also reclaim their property or do something with it. So those are the changes proposed for TIP. Do I have any questions?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Probably
Does
my only question would be who uses the drop off, the delivery mostly? Is that Ned's or does the town receive many goods like that, or is the bakery, or who is it kind of for all that?
It's for all that. The town receives quite a bit of UPS and FedEx deliveries. The PD uses that spot temporarily to go into town hall. Public Works also uses that spot. It could be used for a variety of different temporary 10-minute drop-offs and parking.
Okay.
Chris, would that, I'm sure JVA is on top of this, but is there enough room for those angled parking to get out if a UPS truck is there? Or would they just be stuck for a while potentially?
There's quite a bit of room there, so there should be plenty.
Okay, great.
You see that there's the dimension over here by the visitor center. It says 16 feet. And so you can
Okay.
kind of get a sense of how much room there is between them.
Yeah, probably more than 16, which is a fair amount, especially for an angled spot. Great.
Okay.
Chris,
If I don't have
can I
any,
ask a question?
yes.
How many parking spaces are we losing? We've already lost all the parking in front of Ned's on the one side because they have outdoor booths there. How many parking spaces are we losing out of the visitor center parking lot? Because that affects us, obviously, over in the shopping center, as well as further down First Street, to not have that parking in the center of town. You're taking away what seems to me like a lot of parking. Do you have a number?
Yeah, I believe there's 11 spaces there if you include the town staff parking space. I want to be clear though. I'm not taking anything away. Parking as it is right now exists on somebody else's property. So I want to be clear,
I understand what you're saying, but you're saying is a loading zone, but how many parking spaces could we put there if we didn't have a loading zone?
I agree, and that's something to be considered. And I just want to point out that it's really painting. We could try to put parking there and see how it works out. And we also could try to put parking, and I had this conversation a couple days ago. If for some reason there's not a desire to develop parking on West First Street, then we could also put in parallel parking along the curb at Kathmandu as well. I don't think it would provide as much parking as this scenario down here, but that is an option. But to your point, Barb, yes, we're losing parking.
Okay, thank you.
And Chris, do you have any update on the left turn lane? I know that was just kind of given the go-ahead last month.
No update. I submitted the application, and I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear from them.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I look forward to that. And Chris, if a little bit coming up here when we're talking about some of the grants, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to those diagonal spaces along West First Street that Chris was just showing. Just because I think that one of our grant possibilities could go toward that. There was one of the grants that specifically states about improving or increasing parking. So that was kind of in my sights, and I'll mention that a little later when we're talking on the development grants.
Okay, well, I think that could be fairly low-hanging fruit and relatively easy to develop compared to the development that you're trying to do on Big Springs Drive. Just
Right.
because there's not a lot of storm drainage, underground storm sewer, and that kind of thing. So that would be fairly easy to develop.
Great. Well, good. Right, we're moving on to discussion items. I just wanted to ask if there's any public comment on these discussion items before we move forward. And I don't see anybody. So moving ahead here, I have the next up on the discussion item is the financial plan update. And I don't know if Dana was going to present anything, or perhaps Hope, if you were going to on
Uh,
this item?
Dana was going to hop on the phone around 7:30,
Okay.
so I'm not sure, or
Well, let's
6:30.
come. Oh, okay. Well, let's come back to that. And if you have a chance, maybe you could text her or, let her know that we're ready for her.
I
And
will
we'll,
do that.
and we'll move on to the next item in the meantime. I also noticed that in the aim for that, it referenced a document, but I didn't see any links to that. So I don't know if you have access to that, if you could maybe have it for us when she comes on, or if she could.
Okay, yes, I will.
Thank you. So now moving to the, we'll pass over Dana Edwards for now and go to the Rural Development Grant. Andrew, are you good to present this for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna try a share screen if I could. I know there's the brochure people can access, but I'm gonna see if I can share a screen. I've highlighted some stuff here, so see if that comes in here. Are you able to see some highlighting?
Yes, we can see that.
You can see that. Is that coming in? Okay. So this was something that just came to my attention, actually, who lives in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and is working with her town in a similar capacity to help to take advantage of grant programs. And this is specific to the USDA. And she relayed a conversation to me with at least the administrator that they had in their area, which is that, not a lot of applicants have applied, and, encourage anyone to review the program and brochures and see what, potential grants could be applied for. Now, I don't want to gloss over the fact that it definitely takes some time, and I know Chris can speak more to this than I can because I'm not a grant writer. However, some of the things that we've just talked about, like for example, on this lower the rural business development grant, it may apply to, for example, on the uses, we've got acquire or develop land, buildings, plants, and equipment, build or improve access roads, parking areas, utility extensions, water and waste disposal facilities, and it's just a straight up awarded on a competitive basis. So, whether it's our parking or public access, that's one possibility. The other thing that came to mind immediately was Snyder's Garage, and I've heard some conflicting information on whether it's actually still certainly the developing environmental remediation, could fall into this bucket. And I know the deadline is the 26th, which is only 16 days away. So I don't really have, I should say I have high hopes and low expectations for actually being able to pull these grants off. But
And
because
Andrew, sorry, if I could just
yes.
cut in real quick, I talked to Hope before our meeting, and she was really willing to work on some of the grants if we determine some that we feel are really great fits. So I think that, rather than us having to use our volunteer time to write the grants, perhaps Hope could help writing those, just to
Well,
put it out there.
yeah, be fantastic. I mean, some of the immediate things that came to mind would be Snyder's Garage and or potentially looking at the propane tank property down by Teens Inc., and that would fall into the rural business development grant. But then back up to the top of my page where you've got community facilities loans and grants. You know, I had a conversation with Stephen Lefevre of Teens Inc. just to get his read on this, and he pointed out that, you know, one of the things that seems to be an immediate need in his purview is showers at Nederland Community Center, and trying to see maybe if an infant care center for children less than 2.5 years of age, because currently there's nothing in cares for infants. So that would be one. Another thing would be internet connectivity. I know that it's not as much of an issue in the town of Ned proper, but certainly with, you know, remote learning, taking you know, that may be something that would fall into the bucket. There's a lot of energy efficiency upgrades in these grants. But the things that came to the top, the pot for me would be Snyder's Garage and potentially anything that Public Works. And I know Chris is aware of this grant. I'm not sure where he's, and Chris, maybe you can speak to this, but I'm not sure going after the rural business development grant, specifically as it relates to water and wastewater. And there's a whole nother program down, if I scroll down a little bit, where it talks all about just water and wastewater and solid waste management. And again, I'm not a public works guy, but these are just some kind of other items. But for me, as the thinking this through from a downtown development, it seems that a quick one to at least throw at the wall would be a grant for the remediation, you know, the purchase and remediation of Snyder's Garage would be an option. And or, again, I don't know what the status of the propane tank property is, but similar action down there. And then also the infant care center and potentially showers at the community center. So that's, you know, I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw this brochure and the other associated paperwork and was able to kind of take it in and kick it around. And then if there's something that, you know, I certainly totally support someone being paid to throw some stuff at the wall here.
Andrew?
You know, yes.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry. This is Karen.
No,
I just wanted to offer staff's assistance to work with Hope. I'd certainly be happy to. I know some information about the propane property. We'll be able to tell her if, you know, Snyder's Garage is still for sale and, you know, what's the environmental issues there and those kinds of things. So we could certainly work with her if you guys just want to, you know, give us the nod for Hope to work on this grant and interface with staff. We'd be happy to help research it.
Awesome. Yeah. Just seems like there's so many opportunities out there to get direct grant funding that I feel like it would just be well worth the time to not try to get something, whether it's for infant care or blighted property or I mean, you name it. This brochure is, I think if you go through it, you can just see how many things jump out at every one of you for various different reasons. So those are the few items that were at the top of my list, but I'm sure everyone else has their own ideas and would love to hear about them.
Yeah, I could chime in too. I have a contact for USDA rep here in Boulder, and I'm actually going to be meeting, discussing other grants with her next week. And I am interested. I don't have the deadline that you described. Some of the grants that I'm interested in are year round, and was really looking to pursue a grant opportunity for 2022. Unless I got free money, then I'll take free money. But anyway, I can help share that the contact for whomever to start that process.
So maybe it's, me and Chris and Hope kind of initially do some research and work together to see if there's any good opportunities out there.
That sounds good to me. And I thought that if that's allowable for us just as a board to say, yeah, we're interested in pursuing any of these that are a good fit, and then leave it
Just
with
do
you
a-
guys.
You
Yeah.
could just do a nod of 4 and just give your staff, Hope direction to do that and to work with staff. You don't even have to take a vote.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. And so before we even get to that point, I just wanted to also add in one or two things that I had seen in those same groups that Andrew was talking about. And actually, you covered a few of them that I was thinking of. One, the Rural Business Development Grant does mention the parking, so I thought that that might be a great fit for the West First Street to be able to get money for that to tie into the TIP project. And the other one, I thought Snyder's Garage was a great idea. And then the other one was for the it's a rural micro entrepreneur assistance program. And to me, it sounded a lot like the grant that for Western Boulder County that Hope has been managing the last couple of years, and she's written the grants for that. And I thought that that might be able to give us some funding just to provide technical assistance to some of the small businesses within town. I didn't know if any other board members had a chance to peruse this and look at some of the links and any other ideas that they thought would be worth considering.
I would just
Please.
add that I think that the performance space would fall somewhere in one of these programs, and that might be worth looking into.
Great. Yeah, it seems really so many opportunities here. It is, relatively short notice, but yeah, I think if the board has any other ideas to throw out now, just otherwise we can go on to a nod of 4 and just give some direction for Hope. So sounds like we don't have any other input, but there are, tremendous opportunities and many of them here. So could we just give a nod of 4 for Hope to give her direction to check in with town and Chris and try to work through some of these grant opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think you've identified like 4 or 5 that make sense already. So
Yeah,
all those are worth looking at.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just Hope, we'd love to have you work with town and try to determine what are the top few that you think we would be able to get in by the deadline. Just go
Great,
for it.
thanks. Sure, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Hope.
thank you. And thanks
And-
for bringing that to everybody's attention. I hadn't seen that one before you brought it up.
Yeah, no, glad and Hope. I've got some templates that are more specific to machinery that I know we don't. That's not necessarily on any of the 4 or 5 items on the list. But if there's someone can think of a piece of equipment that the town needs, I've got some templates on that were used in other locales.
Okay.
But I think just dealing with what we've got on the plate already is plenty.
Yeah,
Thank you, Andrew.
excellent. So let's see, I see Dana's on the call now. Welcome, Dana. And you could, if you'd like to take on the next item is the financial plan update.
Sure. So I'm just the goal here with our next 15 minutes that we have together is for me to get any feedback that you all have on the investment policy statement draft. I am going to share it with you, and I have a few things highlighted in red, which were included on the draft copy that you all have. So those are the things that I want to center our conversations around, the things that I need to know in order to just continue finalizing this. But before I go into that, I just want to make sure that any questions or anything that came up for any of you that you want some clarification on, whether it's just the draft itself or this process that we're going through, anything at all. No? All good? Are things making sense? Because I know for some of you folks, this reading through this might seem a little foreign. Mostly I want to make sure that it's making sense to you, because you are all the ones who are going to have to adopt it and kind of adhere to it and make sure that it remains effective as time goes on. So just with that in mind, are there any other pieces that come up that you want me to just go into more detail about or explain more thoroughly? Otherwise, I'll just kind of launch onto my what I need to know to keep moving forward.
Dana, this is Steve. I was reading the AIM earlier this afternoon, and I noticed you referenced something that was highlighted, and I didn't see anything highlighted in our AIM or any link to something like that. I wasn't sure if I was misunderstanding that or if there was some missing information in our packet.
You should have all received a copy of the draft investment policy statement. So I can, and Hope, did that go out? I emailed it to you on Friday morning or early afternoon, it might have been.
Yeah, it looks like people are looking at the document now.
Okay.
I see people in the agenda looking at it. Draft investment policy, second link under financial plan update.
Does that help you, Steve?
Yeah, and I thought that there was something listed. I don't have it in front of me right now on my computer, but I thought there was something you said there were some highlighted portions that you were especially interested in hearing about.
They should be within that document itself. So they're just highlighted in red.
Okay.
Why don't I go ahead and share my screen, and that will, that way I can just show you where all these things are. So you all should be seeing Word doc, investment policy statement, Nederland Downtown Development Authority. And we've got the cover page, table of contents. And then I guess the first highlighted part on page 3, so the top of this page is overall objective and scope. This policy shall not apply to fund proceeds related to the issuance of debt. And this was something that I just included because it shows up for some organizations because they actually will issue bonds themselves, like if this was for a municipality. But I don't think that the Downtown Development Authority is in that business, but I wanted to just leave it here in case you actually knew that you were. If you're not, then I'll just delete this sentence here, right now.
Yeah.
Yes, that is my understanding, Dana.
Okay.
This is Karen, that
Hi,
it
Karen.
is the town, the municipalities that are mandated by the statutory language to issue debt, but not the DDA. But I will stand corrected if someone from the DDA feels differently.
I'm just going to strike through it for the moment. If anything comes up, if any of you, have a flash of, wait a minute, I think we actually can, and maybe we want to, then we can come back and revisit that. But for my notes and for the next draft of this, unless I hear from any of you, I won't include the sentence.
The statute does allow the DDA to issue
Yeah.
debt.
It does, but they do have to go through, they do have to let the town know through a resolution what they're doing, but that's the whole point of the line of credit with the CD.
Yeah,
We can't just go in and start writing checks out of that without telling the BOT or, reporting that to the BOT, because they do have oversight.
Yeah,
But-
the BOT has the governance over that debt. So I do think that is an important fact, that it's not just you guys telling the BOT. The
Right.
BOT would actually have to approve it because it's actually the town's debt.
Okay, so it would be the town that would issue the debt, not the Downtown Development Authority.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
do things differently here in Nederland, where the DDA actually ends up borrowing from the town.
Okay.
So it's a little complicated, but
Well, but that's why the whole line of credit was created, so that we wouldn't have to go through the town all the time for debt.
right.
Yeah.
We totally support that.
Yeah.
So would you like for me to leave this sentence in there or delete it?
I would say research it a little bit more.
Right,
Okay.
and ultimately, this policy is going to be run by the Board of Trustees, correct?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking your lawyer is going to be reviewing this, the DDA lawyer, and then so will our lawyer. So we'll have two legal sets of eyes on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So
That'll
can
be
I
something
just,
that I'll just keep highlighted to alert Paul to when we send him the draft for review.
Dana, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I read this policy shall not apply to fund proceeds related to the issuance of debt, as in there can be investment policy if we're creating debt to fund the investment. Am I understanding that right?
I think there would be an investment policy for that, but that's not what this one is for.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just going to keep scrolling down here, and I'll try to run through and just give a really brief synopsis of what all these things are. So obviously we just state where the laws are that can be researched to go over this. And then a big part of really the main purpose of this investment policy statement is to allow the DDA to invest funds that are currently held in cash into investments that will produce some kind of greater return than just sitting in a bank account. But since you're a public entity designated to do public good, there's laws and statutes that say, okay, well, you can't just put your money anywhere, because a lot of investment instruments out there don't have any kind of guarantee. So in my research, and when I had Paul, your attorney, review this, it really came down to you're allowed to invest in basically in fixed income type of investments. And so what that means is that those investments actually do have a guaranteed rate of return associated with them. They're going to, so think about it from, it's like one of the things you could invest in that a lot of us are familiar with are CDs at a bank. And you can put money into a CD, it gets a certain interest rate, and you know that you're going to get paid your principal, which is your original amount that you invested. So let's say it's $250,000. That's the amount we've been talking about that you might invest. You put that into a CD. Let's say the CD matures in 1 year, and you're going to be guaranteed a 3% return. So in 1 year, you're going to be able to access your principal plus an additional 3%. And that's a guarantee from the bank. That can't change. So that's really important, because you don't want to be so aggressive that you lose that principal, because that would make you look bad. And it's also illegal according to Colorado state statute. So safety of principal is number one, just making sure that the principal amount, you can always access that. Liquidity is the ability to pull that cash out if needed. So you might want to have, what that's getting at is that you might have investments that are really short term. They might just, be 30-day type of investments with a really small guaranteed return, because you know that you want that portion of those funds to be liquid, to be able to be accessed and used for something. Or you might have other parts of that 250,000 that might be invested in instruments that are still safety of principal, and you're going to get your principal back, but they're going to be in an instrument that has a 5-year time frame. a maturity date. And after 5 years is when you're going to be able to access that principal again and get whatever interest rate would be promised. So that's much less liquid. Does that make sense? Let me know if it doesn't. 'Cause I can only see Steve and Brett. I can't see anybody else nodding their heads, but Steve's nodding his head. So I'll go with that. And then market rate of return is that you want, it's a tertiary to safety of principal and liquidity. Market rate of return is basically what is the return that we get on these investments. So that's important. We want to make sure that you're definitely doing better than the bank, but it's the third goal down. And then the next few start to get into just some areas that are things we always want to be thinking about. Taxation, making sure that whatever you're investing in, you're not going to get a huge tax hit from it if there's gains or anything like that. So that's something that when you build an investment portfolio and you get to that point, we would be talking about. You would be working with your accountants who manage your accounts on that piece to just minimize that throughout. And then asset allocation and rebalancing procedures. So this is where it really starts to get interesting and you all have some decisions to make. So asset allocation is how we take that 250,000 and we put it into different types of instruments so that you're essentially getting rid of some of the risk, or you're sort of spreading the risk out. Now, when you're investing in fixed income, it's definitely already inherently not as risky as putting it all into individual stocks, but there are different types of risk that can show up. And so there's a way of mitigating that and managing that. That's another piece that whoever would be managing these assets for you would really have to focus on and be very mindful of, because not only for you, the client, but it's also legally what is supposed to happen. So I'm going to just kind of zoom on down a little bit because I know you guys have tons of work that you're up to. So this piece under diversification on page 5, and I put this thing up here as kind of my reminder and also something for you all to keep in mind, that you don't have to invest in all these different things, but you could, and you get to choose. So I tried to organize these from the easiest, potentially most familiar types of investments that you have access to the more obscure and possibly the ones that you may not have heard of before. So I'm going to do a really as brief a little quip about each of these as I can. I've tried to explain them into the description. So money market mutual funds, a money market is basically like a savings account. It's basically in cash. It would be good for you to probably always have some portion of this investment in cash, whether that needs to be in a money market mutual fund or just in a cash account. That's kind of up to you. The next one down is United States Treasury and agency issues. And so these are going to be United States bonds, United States notes, treasury notes, things like that. So those can have a wide array of different maturities and different interest rates, but they're guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the US government or US government agencies. And agencies are like the Department of Education is an agency of the government, whereas the US government is the US government. So each of those can issue their own different types of fixed income products, and you can invest in those. Government-sponsored enterprises are kind of similar to US government and government agencies, but they're a little bit less entwined, but they're still very much a part of the system. So that's going to be like Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, those types of things, which the government has a lot of regulation over. So that's another thing you could potentially invest in. State and local government debt issues. These are going to be different types of bonds. So general obligation bonds, revenue obligation bonds, bonds that are issued by municipalities. Bank securities, those are going to be like certificates of deposit or CDs at a bank. Corporate debt would be when a company issues bonds, which is often something that they do to raise capital. You could invest in some of those. And then the two that I personally thought were the most obscure and that I had to just educate myself on a little bit was these last two. So local government investment pools. Colorado has something called the Colo Trust. Sure some of you have heard of it. I got to learn a little bit about it, but basically it's Colorado, municipalities. I couldn't quite figure out if the DDA would actually be eligible to invest in the Colo Trust. That was something else that I wanted to follow up on. But that was the one that I found that seemed to be the kind of example that's available in Colorado. And what they do is it's sort of like they kind of take it on and manage it for you, and they make sure that it's all in line with the investment or with the statutes and things like that. So it's an option. And then the last one is repurchase agreements and reverse repurchase agreements. And what this would look like, very simplistically stated, is if basically if you were to sell some kind of agreement to another party, you would basically be the debt issuer at that point. So the DDA would say to you, this other entity, you're going to buy this debt from us. You're going to pay us back in 2 years at an interest rate of 5%. And so 2 years, they would buy that back from you. And so that's kind of how that works. There's a lot more to it, but just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. So with all of these, you'll see here, I'll just highlight this one for bank securities. You'll see here that there are maturity dates. So all the Colorado state statutes give you a maximum amount of time that you could hold an investment in one of these. So you could have multiples of them, but they could, the longest they could be to maturity for bank security specifically is 5 years. If you go through this and you read it in detail, some of them have 3 years, some of them have 90 days. There's a little bit of variation, but it's something that we have to follow. And then the credit rating is basically making sure, this one's a little bit, actually, this isn't a great example because it's cash and they're insured by the FDIC up to $250,000. But here, under corporate debt, a credit rating is going to be something like from Moody's or from Fitch, and it just has to be one of basically their top graded types of securities. So they have a really solid credit rating. They have a clear maturity date, and ultimately they have a clear set of what is the return going to be, and what is the return going to be? When are we going to receive that return? That's the maturity date, and knowing that whatever those investments are, they're highly rated and credible, basically. So the big part of this that I need to do next is to just get a sense from you of which of these are you most interested in. I guess maybe the easiest answer is just, do you want to go simple or do you want to go more complex? And I have my impression, just my conversations with you thus far, but I want to get your take on it first and questions and things like that. So, what are y'all thinking?
Well, I don't mind if it's a little more complex, because I don't think very many of the board members are interested in this angle. I'm the one that's been pushing it, and I'm the one that would be willing to follow it and make simplified explanations, as long as they would allow me to do so.
And
This is Karen. I just want to throw out something real quick. And I was with the Science Facilities District, and we would put through about $60 million a year. We were using Colo Trust, and I just want to highly recommend it. If you're looking for something and I'm not saying put all of it in there or anything, but a very stable, guaranteed way to invest your money. Thanks.
What was that one called again, Karen?
That's the Kahlo Trust that Dana introduced in part of her presentation. And of course, as a special tax district, we had to follow all the rules too, just like Dana was talking about. And you know, it's not going to earn you 10%. That's just not what it is. But it's going to earn you money, and you know your money's safe.
Yeah. I mean, I will just chime in that, you know, this is Brent. From my perspective, being relatively conservative in with other people's money or money that we're responsible for is probably the direction I lean. But I'm pretty conservative fiscally, so I think that just probably my gut would be to, you know, I totally appreciate where Ron's coming from, or that he may take the lead and want to manage it, but we're all volunteers, and who has time for it? And to me, I would let somebody like the Colorado example that you gave kind of take the lead, just to have it be more brainless for us and simple and a little bit probably more conservative. That's just that would be my 50 cents worth.
Sure.
Yeah, I would just chime in that I know we've spoken about the amount of our funds that have been committed. So I'm kind of curious, unencumbered funds, what amount are we potentially talking about? And I realize that income will be invested, provided they're highly liquid and, you know, can still be brought in. But do we have a quick idea of what percentage of encumbered funds and what the potential time frame is on those needing to be due and what the unencumbered funds are?
We're probably 85% encumbered, with the payouts projected probably with around a year. It depends on how fast the projects get into the pipeline and approved and done. So the amount of money that we would have to invest at this point is probably not much more than 200,000. However, next year's income is not committed except for the one project that we mentioned, and that could be around 350 to 400,000.
Okay.
I'd like to take a better look at the numbers. Once Rita and I look at the resolutions and what's left over, because I think we're actually doing or the DDA is doing pretty well.
Dana, this is Steve talking. I was wondering if what you're looking for here is for us to basically narrow down the focus of investment types that we would be interested in, or is it okay to leave all of these in our policy as options?
So you can leave them all in your policy as options, but the part that we do need to focus on and narrow in on is up to what percentage. So these, and then no more than a certain percentage. So it could be, you know, money market mutual funds, you know, could be, you know, 10% of that 200,000 and no more than 50%. So the reason to do that is to make sure that there's a proper amount of diversification to mitigate whatever different types of risk might show up. And I think also, I mean, you could kind of play around with it a little bit, and you know, this isn't saying like we're going to do this, but you could just, it gives yourself a parameter, which keep in mind down the road, you all can always change this policy too, as you get some more experience and you see how it feels, and whatever direction you decide to go, you can always update this in subsequent years. But to just sort of decide so that, because that really is the next phase. I mean, once you have this investment policy statement, then the next phase is, all right, well, let's implement it. Let's do it. Let's take that 200,000 and invest it according to this statement. So yes. And I realize it's probably a little bit more difficult to do right now here on the spot. So I'm not quite sure what the best process is. I mean, you know, it might be another thing is to choose like who are the people. It's a little bit further down, but who is the person or the people that ensure that this statement aligns, that your investments ultimately align with this statement. And if it doesn't, what needs to be corrected, or if that's on the investments or on the statement itself. So, sorry, lots of scrolling. So I put in here down at towards the bottom of page 8 under standard of care, you know, who has the authority to manage your investment portfolio is granted to, and I just put investment committee, but it could be just the treasurer. It could be the treasurer and an outside advisor if you choose to work with an outside advisor. So that might be an easier place to begin is to designate who are the people that are going to be concerned about this on more of a regular basis, and they'll just be reporting to the rest of you, and you all feel okay with giving that person or people the authority to make decisions around where.
Well, and whoever it would be, if it's me, no investment's going to be made without bringing it to the board first and going through the aspects of it. So I think the entire document is pretty good as it is. Certainly, I like it.
There's no committee or one person that can write a contract or make any decision. The entire board needs to be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Dana, one question going back to like the percentages, you know, if we were going to try to narrow this down further by either eliminating any of these or investment types or by adding a percentage cap, you know, for any of them. I'm just kind of wondering about that because just by their nature and by Colorado statutes, these are all really low risk, you know, guaranteed basically minimum returns. And we're not really risking much at all. And there's liquidity, you know, parameters built into them. So I'm just not sure why we would want to, you know, kind of hamper ourselves by adding percentages for each of these, and rather than, you know, maybe a more broad thing of whoever we designate that would be in charge of coming up with the ideas, and then the board would approve it, and then I'm sure the BOT would need to approve it. So I'm just wondering, because it all seems so low risk by design and Colorado statute. It's not really, we're not really risking anyone's money here.
Yeah, that's, you know, when you're dealing with fixed income, and I'm scrolling up because I did do a little bit about this here at the bottom of page 3. So this speaks a little bit to the types of risk that are a little bit more inherent or that you may experience with these fixed income. So it's very different. You're not dealing with market risk, right? Like you would in the stock markets, but you're dealing more with, you know, credit risk. So that's if the security issuer, you know, goes out of business. Like let's say you're in corporate debt of some kind, you invest in some corporate debt and that person, you know, that company goes under. So you manage that by making sure they're in line with the credit rating. So that's pretty straightforward. The interest rate risk is a little bit more complex. And so basically what it means is the value of funds, it sort of depends on the nature of how interest rates work in bonds and when interest rates are rising or falling, which, you know, you hear, most of us are familiar with interest rates by hearing that the Fed lowered the interest rate or raised the interest rate or whatever. But this is where that actually has a broader impact. It isn't huge. It has more to do with just kind of in the moment as things are going and what you're expecting to ultimately have your return be down the road. That can have a little bit of an impact. So you're not wrong, Steve. This is definitely a different game than if we were talking about risk and investing in the markets. But it's something to just be a little of, that there are some things to consider. So, but I like what you said about, let me just get back to this bit here. About maybe having me just sort of change the wording a little bit, because I don't think you necessarily have to have this piece. I included it because I wasn't sure which direction you all were going to want to go. But I think I could put something in there that's a little bit more like, especially if you're all planning to talk about, agree to all of this. If you're okay with not letting somebody just sort of be able to make the decisions, if you want to do that collectively as a board, then I think we could put in here that this would be reviewed on maybe it's quarterly basis, to see, and to whoever that sort of the representative is can come to you and say, here's how the performance is doing, here's been the return so far. There's been some, issues with interest rates. Here's a little bit about the environment around interest rates right now. Here's the impact it might have, but ultimately this stuff is not that complex.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was my feeling about it, is that if we could maybe put in a little more structure about how we would perform investments, or, how they would be, I guess, the logistics of it more, something like this would be, if we have investments, then the treasurer would need to come to us quarterly, with reports and reporting on what it is, and we would have a chance to quarterly to alter our investments or something like that. I mean, to me, that makes more sense, just because most of the risk is pretty low.
I just want to jump in here, Dana, just for my own clarity. You're talking about money market funds and not money market accounts, correct?
Correct. So it's a money market mutual fund, and all that really means is it's a mutual fund has lots of different, it would have lots of different like money markets in there potentially, or it might be a fund that's under one specific, like Fidelity's money market mutual fund, or Chase's money market mutual fund. So it would just be something like that.
And those, then forgive me if this is a stupid question, but if it's a money market mutual fund, moves in the market, is there a way to incorporate, I don't know if this is the correct term, but like a trailing stop, or can we do, talk about stop limits of the fund? Does that make sense? Or does that not apply to a money market mutual fund?
That does not apply. So a money market mutual fund, a money market is pretty much all in cash, almost exclusively. So it's a little bit of, it doesn't quite make sense to read it, but when you have a money market mutual fund, it's in cash, so cash isn't subject to lots of twists and turns like a mutual fund would be. When we think of a mutual fund, we think of this is a fund that has lots of different stocks in it and things like that, and it can go up and down, and this is not the same thing. This would just basically be in cash. This would sort of be like where you would want to keep your cash reserves of that 200,000. So like, let's say you were like, let's just keep 50 in cash, 50,000 in cash, so that we know it's there. We can access it really easily, really quickly. Doesn't really have any maturity date to it, but it doesn't have to because it's just cash. Whereas maybe the other 150,000 you might put into some bonds or something like that, and those are going to have maturities that are a little bit further down the road. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome.
Then I'd like to ask again if you had a chance to talk with all that about the county issued certificates.
I did, and I meant to email you, Ron. I'm sorry, but so Paul does not. says we cannot invest in those. And it was basically for the reasons that I thought, was that they don't have that maturity time frame or a credit rating. Even though like you're really familiar with them and have that experience, so I'm sure kind of inherently it may, but if it's not in a prospectus somewhere, then no go.
No, they don't issue a prospectus. Not at all.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
let's,
all.
Bummer. I was hoping for it. They seem like pretty, interesting opportunities. He did say that you could, because I asked the question, there are mutual funds out there that are all comprised of fixed income securities, like a bond fund. So he did say that you could invest in something like that. You would just really have to mind it, because then you're sort of giving control over to fund managers, and sometimes they sway a little bit from their stated purpose. So it would require a little bit more monitoring, I think. So I want to let you guys all go. You've already given me like 20 more minutes than you had originally hoped to. So here's what I'm going to do. I will change the wording in this section to align it a little bit more with just the flexibility of the understanding that you all will be discussing this as a group. And that will also coincide with me making some updates to the standard of care section. To also say that you will make these decisions as a group. However, I would designate a single person, and it sounds like Ron, or the treasurer, would be the one to just, get documents, consider, to bring something to the board, right? And say, this is what I'm thinking, maybe along if you have an outside manager of some kind helping with pulling these various types of investments together, to bring that to all of you so that you can decide if that makes the most sense.
I think so, but I don't know about the rest of the board. But I think that makes perfect sense to name the treasurer, so a position rather than a person, and in conjunction with an outside investor if we have hired one.
Yeah.
I would think that you would use the chairman, I would think you would, because we're all volunteers, it's better to say, it's the treasurer and the chairman of the DDA that would have to make the decision to come to the board before making any decisions. And then it has to ultimately be blessed by the board of trustees. And I'd keep it very, I don't think necessarily we need an outside investor, or to use a broker in a situation like this, because the interest or the exposure is pretty low. And I like all the different options. I would keep all those in. I think it
Okay.
makes a lot of sense. That would be my 50 cents worth.
And the chairperson, is that Hope at right now? Just
No,
so
No, it's Steve.
Steve,
Oh, it's Steve. Okay.
but I wouldn't use names. I would use.
Right.
No. I'll put treasurer and chairperson.
Yeah.
This is their role.
I'd
I'm
like to
fine.
make a comment. We're not talking about a huge amount of funds here. If we hire an outside consultant to do this, it'll eat up all the interest that we would earn. There's no point in even doing the project if we have an outside consultant.
Sure.
I agree. We don't need one, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of options out there for fixed income, just as somebody who's a little bit more on that side of things. I've put out some feelers of like, who are some people who specialize in this? And what I do know is that oftentimes their fees are significantly reduced just because there isn't that much going on. And it may just be something that you consider early on, when you're first making those investments, or not. I mean, you have somebody on your board who's pretty savvy with these kinds of things, so that might be perfectly well and good for you. And I think you all will make that decision on your own. My goal is to have this next version of this be hopefully the final version with these few changes. If you all could do a favor between now and the next meeting or the next couple of weeks so that I have a couple of weeks to just incorporate anything else. Just read through this. Let me know if there's anything that comes up that just you think you don't need or could be worded a little bit differently. You know, you all know more about how your board functions, and this is definitely going to be something that will become part of your annual, at least maybe quarterly, maybe even monthly meeting. So I want to make sure that it's valuable to you all, and that you also have your final copy fairly soon, so we're not, you know, dragging this on into the summer or anything like that. So
And this link is on the agenda, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
and if there's any questions, I'm really happy to help people understand this stuff. It's not what most people are used to working with. So no, I was an educator for a really long time. You can ask me anything about any of it, and I'll be happy to answer and provide some insight.
Great, thanks, Dana. Appreciate all that effort.
Sure thing, everybody.
Great, good night.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night. All right, then we have next up the last item is an action item, and would just ask if there's any public comment for this action item at this time. Okay, seems like there isn't. So yeah, I just with a bit of sadness, I want to let that Hope is resigning, and I spoke with her over the weekend. That's when this came up, and you know, from my discussion with her, I feel very sure that it's the right decision for her. And you know, she has a lot going on back east and with her family, and really, you know, we wanted her to get back there and see what was going on and how she felt about it, and if she was able to come back here. And so that time has passed, and she really thought long and hard about it. And so, you know, I feel like this is the time for us to be transitioning to a new executive director. And Hope and I had a good conversation about the transition that she experienced when Josiah left. And she and I both had very similar ideas that it was a poor transition, and that she didn't receive any real support from our outgoing ED at that time. And so I feel very strong that we should pay Hope during that transition period for her help in transitioning. And because I think, you know, Josiah left and he had a lot going on. He was having a new baby and all sorts of transitions in his life, but he really didn't get any support. And I think it's very crucial to the board to have that transition happen well. And Hope's, you know, spent a lot of time in the last year getting up to speed with the finances and working with town on that, and developed some good procedures that are really still in the works. So I feel really strongly that, and Hope was very happy to keep working as our ED in the short term until we could hire somebody, and then to transition, help in the transition. So anyway, I also just really wanted to say that I appreciate very much, Hope, you know, all that you've done for us and all the long hours and hard work, getting us to where we are. And I really appreciate all that, and I'm sure the rest of the board does. And if you've seen the AIM, I kind of laid out a pretty quick overview of the sort of the quickest time frame I can think of for us to be able to hire a new ED. And I'd love to run through the group that's on the phone still, and you know, just hear if you have any adjustments that you'd like to make to the time frame or the manner in which we do this. And the other part of this is that I'd like to have a committee for for hiring a new ED. And I think Claudia and I were the ones that were, well, I know it was Claudia and me, with working with Karen at town for this last hiring of Hope. But I just wanted to hear from each of you as well if you'd be interested in being on that committee or not. And then if we have more people than two, then not sure. I was thinking we could just vote on who it should be, but that might be a little difficult logistically. But let's at least for now just start by if I could call on you guys and each of you could just try to be as brief as we can. We're at 8:01 right now. But just to let me know, if you see any problems with this time frame or the logistics of what I was laying out here, and whether you'd be interested in being on the hiring committee. So let me see, Brent, maybe if I could just start with you.
Yeah, I got a little head start because Steve and I spoke about this today. So I absolutely want to say to Hope, I really appreciate you, especially I think the last 3 or 4 months in particular, you've really started to kind of learn the job and understand it much better. And we finally kind of had it's a really good thing going. And I really appreciate it if you can stay and help train the new person, because I think there's some value there, even from afar, just because I think that could speed the process up and understand, why the first year was so frustrating because Josiah just left and was never there for any support. So I think if you can help a little bit, we can move forward. And yeah, if needed, I'd be on the hiring committee. So
Great, thank you,
Great,
Brent.
thanks.
Let's see, Andrew, I can hear from you.
Yeah, I want to second what Brent said. I hope really appreciate everything you've done and how hard you've worked. And I know I support the timeline that you laid out, Steve. It's, just RFP out. It seems willing to stay with us and train someone. She's still looking for being willing to do that, and appreciate everything you've done.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. And it was breaking up a lot there, but did you say you'd be interested or not necessarily on being on the hiring committee?
I could say that I've got kind of a lot on my plate right now. If need be, I could help review, but I wouldn't necessarily volunteer and say I've got a ton of time right now.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Barbara Hart, are you still on? Yes. Could I hear from you on this?
Hi, first I want to say thank you to Hope. It's been truly a pleasure to work with you for the last year. I have learned so much, and I am very sad to see you go, but I understand the position that you're in. I support the timeline. I would absolutely be interested in being on the committee. And I think that it's a good step forward for us to do it as quickly as possible so we can get someone else into the position so Hope has as long as possible to train them, because it's a lot more work than most people realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, Karina, I think you're on the call. What are your thoughts on this?
Hi guys, sorry I was late. And I hope you can hear me. My internet is so incredibly spotty.
Yes.
To Hope, I just I'm just seconding everything that everyone else is saying. I totally understand that you've got to take care of you, and I hope that you can do that. And I'm so impressed with what you've done and how you've brought this board to where it is today. I don't think that the board would be in this situation without everything that you've done. So thank you so much. It's really cool to see. And I'm in support of the timeline. I'm definitely in support of getting somebody to transition with Hope at the helm of that, because it's a challenge to try and bring somebody up to speed with this type of position. And I would be happy to take part in or on a committee to help.
Great. Thank you, Karina. Let's see, who else do we have? Ron Mitchell, could we hear your thoughts?
First, I want to thank Hope so much for all the work, all the effort, and the dedication. It's really been wonderful working with you. It's been great for me. I think you have almost a committee of the whole, so I don't necessarily think I would want to be active on the committee, search committee. I do support the timeline. And again, I'm really pleased, Hope, that you did so much for us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. And Rhea, if you are here, yes, Rhea, if we could hear from you. Rhea, are you still on?
I'm sorry, I'm still here.
Okay, great. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I don't have a lot of thoughts at the moment, so I think I'll just pass my time on to somebody else.
Okay. Got it. And I think, let's see, Jonathan's not here. Claudia, I think, had to log off at 8, so she's gone. She did say she would be okay to be on the committee or not, either way. And yeah, I've already spoken most of what I have to say, and I would be okay either way. I don't feel like I need to be on the committee, but if we needed it. So with that being said, I think we have Barbara Hart said she would be interested in being on the committee. I think Karina, you kind of expressed that you'd be okay either way, if needed or not. Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And Claudia was that way, and Brent was that way. So a lot of us are sort of either way is okay. I don't know if anybody has any input here, how to determine who should be on this hiring committee.
Well, I think Karen, was very helpful for sure on the town site because we got such a close relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to help. And I guess my suggestion is you try to keep it to 2 people, and then you don't have to worry about the sunshine laws. So
Yeah.
if you have 2 people and they're working with me, then we have 3. So, and it honestly, it sounded like Barb was really interested, and between Brent and Karina, maybe one of you is more interested than the other, and we'd have our team.
Yeah. That sounds good to me. Do you guys want a Rochambeau, or do you?
I have plenty to do right now, so I'm okay bowing out.
Okay.
You want me to do it? I have enough going on in my life, so.
Yeah.
No
Karina,
problem.
do you feel like you could put in the time needed? Because I feel like we have a pretty fast track, where it might be a fair amount of time intensively. Okay.
And probably, I think I might be able to find them, but Claudia for sure would be able to find all the documents we used the last time around. And we could and maybe Steve, you've got them too.
Possibly, yeah.
And we could just update those and kind of get started.
Well, great. Then, yeah, if the board is okay with it, I would make a motion that Barbara Hart and Karina Lucier would be working with Karen at town to be our committee, and I would like to make a motion that we would give them power to or whatever the direction to create an RFP that we could review at the next meeting, and we'd come prepared with any potential edits we'd like to do to it before.
So you want it to be a request for proposals?
Sorry. Actually, it would be more like a job posting. You're right.
Yeah, it's a job posting, and I helped do it last time, and I'm happy to do it again.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I was confused.
Of course, we would bring it next month. Anything that we're recommending, and then you guys can all look at it.
That sounds great. And then, yeah, so we could edit it a little bit if needed at next meeting and then immediately post it after the meeting.
And Hope, do you want to be involved too, where we can send documents to you and you look at them? Because you might have input.
Oh, happily. Yeah, I was thinking about the job description and yes,
Yeah.
happily.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Cool.
a great idea, you guys. And I also wanted to say that being the chair the past year or two, and working with Hope, really through that transition, I can just give you guys some input from my side of things, what I saw or in terms of the development of the ED job and things like that. So while I'm not on the committee, I'd definitely like to just insight that I've found over the last couple of years working with the EDs.
That'd be great. Hope, do you think it would be possible for you to select like the job description, the last job posting from Claudia and that kind of stuff, and then send out to Barb, Karina, and me?
Sure, yeah, I can see what I have here in the DDA files.
Okay, and if you have trouble finding stuff, I can look if you can't find it.
Okay.
Great. And that same for me too. Hope, just reach out if you're having trouble with anything and I may be able to locate it as well.
Okay, sure.
Oh, good. And yeah, just one last time, I want to really say thank you for all that you've done and the developments that we've made with you as our executive director. And more than anything, I think we all just wish you the best in, your life and the decisions that you need to do and that you're facing now. I really hope that that goes well for you.
Thanks. And thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. It's been really wonderful and quite a great learning experience for me. And I'm excited to watch all of these projects come to fruition. I'm coming back.
Yeah.
I can't put a commitment on a date or a time. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
for
all.
sure.
Thank you so much for all you've done.
Yes,
thanks,
thank you,
Fran.
Hope.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I promise I will transition that person as much as you would like me to. And, I would really like to set, just map out the time that it would take and have everybody agree on that so that it's not too much and not too little.
Great. That's important for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I was a little confused because I was thinking RFP, but since it's really just a job posting, Karen, do you feel like we can just do a not a 4 to get this rolling?
Oh, sure, because you're not really making any decisions other than you just appointed some people to be on the committee.
Okay. Well, great. Then, yeah, let's just say with the not a 4, we're setting this in motion.
Woo.
Great.
Sounds
All right.
good.
And now we're at our favorite part of the night, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night.